So Joe Ovies is here from 99.9 The Fan in Raleigh, the OG, which, you doing a show? You on the air today?
You want to go real old school today? It's me and Chris Clark doing the show this afternoon.
Oh, look at that. I don't know who that is.
Let's go.
And Chip Patterson, my friend, who joins us normally on Wednesdays, but we have big news, Cover 3 podcast moderator. So I will start here, and I need to set this up because we're going to start, obviously, with what happened yesterday with Southern Cal and UCLA leaving the Pac-12 at the altar and moving to the Big Ten. We're going to start with the Alliance. And just so in case people weren't aware, the Alliance started, and we have to go pre-pandemic, when the 5 power conferences, which are no longer, they met and tried to decide what to do when COVID was crushing everybody, and we're going to wait. We're going to do things as a group. And then, like 2 days later, the Big Ten went, we're not playing. Figuring that everybody else, because the Big Ten is the mighty Big Ten, everybody's going to fall in line. Well, Pac-12 did. Pac-12 said, we're not playing. And the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12 went, we're going to wait it out. Mm-hmm. Because that was apparently the plan all along, just to kind of wait it out. So we fast forward to what the SEC does. They raid the Big 12 for their 2 most important schools, Texas and Oklahoma, last year. Everybody's mad, and now we get the Alliance. The ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12, and Jim Phillips looked into the eyes of George Kliavkoff and Kevin Warren, and they didn't need a contract. I guess they needed a contract. Joe, did they need a contract?
I want you to look at me in the eyes, Adam.
I am looking at you in the eyes.
Chip, through the screen. I want you to look.
You gotta look at the camera.
Look at the
I do this all the time.
Look at the
I look
camera.
up at
Look at the screen.
Because Chip is alarmingly handsome. So I look up at the monitor, and then I realize I'm not looking at the camera.
I think the cutest thing that we tend to do in our business when we talk about college athletics is that we act as though contracts mean anything. So on one hand, let's say they do have a contract with the Alliance. Well, what's that contract going to look like? I mean, what's the binding thing that keeps the Alliance together? You could probably easily get yourself out of that. The issue is that Jim Phillips said something ridiculous like that. We looked each other in the eye, and if we can't have a man-to-man eye contact moment, then it really shows you what's wrong. Well, yeah, man, you've been working in he's a college athletics lifer. Mm-hmm. That's the most disappointing part. Jim Phillips has been doing this since he came out the womb, I'm assuming, and he didn't have the wherewithal to think, hey, man, they're going to backstab me at any moment. And that's a real failure on Jim Phillips' part. My ninja commissioner would never, he would never allow this to happen.
The ninja commissioner was sort of asleep at the switch, though.
He was retiring.
No, I'm going back further.
Well, I mean,
the Big 12 was always going to implode. Texas and Oklahoma should have been pitched to hard 5 years ago.
Swafford's at the beach chilling out right now, drinking Bud Light Limes.
5 years ago. How do you look at the Alliance, Chip Patterson?
The job was done. They didn't need a contract because it was a short-term deal. The deal was to vote out the college football playoff. It was 8-3 when it came to the expansion of the college football playoff, and the 3 nays in the room were the Alliance. It was the ACC, it was the Big Ten, it was the Pac-12. They didn't need to sign a deal because all they really wanted to do was get together for this one vote and stick it to Greg Sankey and stick it to Jack Swarbrick and stick it to, heck, even Craig Thompson from the Mountain West, who was just like, oh, man, they just invited me to come be a part of these meetings. The hurt feelings were that group spent all of that time trying to run through all these different scenarios to pitch the coaches. They showed up at the football kickoff. They were trying to get everybody on board. And then to have the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12 line up against it, preventing any college football playoff expansion before the conclusion of the current contract, well, then the job was done. Because we can look at it, obviously, from the ACC perspective across this unprecedented statewide platform, but it is the bad feelings between Kevin Warren and George Kliavkoff, because like the night before those college football playoff expansion meetings, the two of them, the Rose Bowl commissioners were going out to dinner together. They were new commissioners. They were forging a friendship that was supposed to be supposedly, allowing these two conferences, which share a lot of the same ideals and ideology, to be able to not let the SEC run away with this thing. So it's really Kevin Warren who's the new ninja here, as he knifes the Pac-12, takes the two biggest properties, and then sets up the Big Ten to not only be on par with the SEC with a retaliatory move, but maybe even positions the Big Ten to be the new alpha in college sports.
I think they are. We're going to get to that in a second. I also remember the alliance was about scheduling, which of course we all laughed at, but they said it was about scheduling, and the first big schedule announcement in college football that came out after the alliance was Southern Cal and LSU playing a game. LSU is not part of the alliance.
Yeah, last time I checked. No.
So good on you guys for coming up with the scheduling thing. Does the Rose Bowl even exist anymore? Do we just have two divisions of the Big Ten playing in the Rose Bowl?
Yeah, play the Big Ten championship in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, at this point, it actually might benefit the Rose Bowl in the grand scheme of things.
I mean, the Rose Bowl's been, with everything that's happened, it's still been one of the most watched bowl games in college football every single year.
Yeah.
Even it doesn't matter if Washington State's in the damn Rose Bowl. People care about the Rose Bowl, which is why you and I used to talk about this all the time. I always thought that, look, I get your Sugar Bowl. It's cute. It's adorable. The Champions Bowl, they called it that for a while, right? But the Rose Bowl is the only one that really moves the needle, and that's the only one that deserves special treatment. National semifinal, Rose Bowl, national semifinal, we should have been done.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to 2030 when North Carolina and Southern Cal play in a Rose Bowl championship for the Big Ten.
Well, we are
really looking forward to that.
We are going to get to that. Let me ask you this, Chip, because I know you're probably going to be there. What's July 20th in Charlotte going to be like? I mean,
very, very angsty. I mean, it was the night before one of the ACC championship games was when there were the rumors of like Georgia Tech going to the Big Ten. And, there was the conversations in the press box that were like, okay, well, when did this become a game of risk? When did this all of a sudden become a big land grab? Well, now we're more than a decade separated from all the conference realignment craze of that last wave, and now we very much know what it's about. It is not about a land grab. It is about creating the type of matchups that will draw the most eyeballs. It's no longer about media market. It is just about ratings drivers. I mean, we're taking college football, the soul of it, off campus, and putting it on the screen. We no longer care about a college football fan. We care about a TV viewer whose favorite TV show is college football. Trademark Michael Felder. He came up with that genius line right there. I really believe that these are entertainment product moves. We as fans are reacting to this, confused, maybe a little repulsed, maybe a little turned off, but conferences, ESPN, Fox, they're used to this moving and shaking. They're used to switching things up. They are used to breaking tradition in order to be able to make more money, in order to be able to draw more ratings. So I think it's going to be very angsty. I am very much my purpose of going has changed.
Yeah.
Right? What I am there to hear, what the questions that I want to ask are very, very different. I believe that we won't have another major move before then, but all the questions are going to be lingering from the moment that Jim Phillips steps to the microphone. Every single head coach, especially the prominent ones that speak sort of on behalf of the league or college football, your Dabo Swinney, your Mac Brown, the coaches that have real perspective among the ACC coaches, they are all going to have some thoughts on it. And so to try and collect as much of that as possible, knowing that they're not the ones that make any decisions. It'll be university presidents. It will be athletic directors. But they'll at least have given a sense of where things might or might not be headed, and we might be able to pick that up during our time in Charlotte. But angsty is my overall response to that.
Just quick context for people, because I didn't do this ahead of time. July 20th and 21st, ACC Football Media Days in Charlotte. I do think it is a game of risk, even though we're not acquiring land. We are acquiring property. Maybe it's more a game of monopoly than it is a game of risk. Joe, do you even want to talk to a player for 2 days? I mean, honestly, I don't really love talking to players anyway, but my interest is not about players. The coaches that Chip mentioned, Dabo Swinney, who may or may not say anything anyway, Mac Brown, that's cool, but I want to talk to administrators.
The players can tell us about how all the money that's coming in from television that'll dole out, what is it, like $100 million per school at this point for the SEC and the Big Ten, how it's really helping them with some, quality of life improvements for their well-being and things like that. Hey, we're making you travel cross country I'd rather talk to Olympic sports at this point, not football. Football players, I think, are kind of used to all the travel and being separated from everything else. I think it's more interesting. I would love to have an ACC kickoff for Olympic sports saying, hey, so about your travel budget, how's that going to work out?
Well, I mean, if this creates money for travel budgets, like I heard somebody complaining about the women's softball team at Southern Cal having to play at wherever, right? But I mean, they're not going to drive. They're not going to bus in a van.
Well, the thing is,
they're going to fly.
But no, it's going to affect them because what we found out in the pandemic is that there's money. There's just money for the things they actually care about. And what will happen is that you'll see a lessening impact on those smaller sports because you're going to have more of an arms race to keep football going, too. I mean, Clemson didn't need to cut sports during the pandemic.
No schools did.
None of them did. They used the pandemic as an excuse to siphon off money so they could put it back towards football, which they cared about. This would be the same thing here, too. You have to look at everything cynically.
All right. By the way, the way that the alliance would have worked, the unbreakable vow. They make the unbreakable vow.
That's a Harry Potter reference?
It is a Harry Potter reference because when you break the unbreakable vow, you die. That's the truth. Just die.
I see.
It's over.
Okay.
Right?
Where are Jim Phillips's Horcruxes?
Not Hora.
Or Cruxes.
It's a Jewish dance crux. No.
Horcruxes.
Horcrux. I don't know. I don't know. Is Horcrux?
I went to Harry Potter land once.
John Swafford's golf shirt.
Probably.
Is the ACC salvageable?
No.
What? No?
It's not. Look, y'all can sit here and come up with all scenarios. Okay, I'll give you one scenario where the ACC is salvageable, but I'm telling you right now, we have roughly 5 years left of the ACC. 5.
I don't think the number is that long.
I said roughly. Yeah. Okay, that's a guesstimate. That's probably a best case scenario.
I think it's either salvageable or it's over in a hurry.
So, and the reason why I say roughly 5 years is because you do have the sliding scale of pain to get out of a contract with the
coach's buyout. This is the same math that every coach on the hot seat has to deal with their athletic director.
It's a sliding scale of pain. Yeah, right. It's a sliding scale of pain. What are you comfortable with? What's going to hurt me? What's going to hurt you equally? And then we'll move on from there. Everything will be negotiated. So it's going to go one of two ways. Either Jim Phillips and this college presidents and ESPN can convince Notre Dame to be the third division of major college football. We talk about the Mega 2, the Power 2, et cetera. It is. That's fine. The mistake... People try to act as though the alliance made a mistake and blow. Like I heard Dan Wetzel earlier, and I disagree with Dan Wetzel from Yahoo Sports about they should have taken the deal. No, they should not have taken that deal for the college football player. No,
in retrospect, it would have been a better decision.
Even in retrospect,
neither was a good decision.
I
agree with you. For the most part.
My point here is that you could not allow the SEC going Game of Thrones, chaos is a ladder to completely take over the college football playoff with ESPN and lock that in with one network and one network only. You want to make more money, you do what the NFL does, and you go for maximum reach, and you break it up with the various networks that are interested in college football. You have 2, possibly 3. You have ESPN, Disney, ABC, and then you have Fox. They're the ones with the money. And you're seeing it play out with the Big Ten and the SEC, right? Apple might figure into that a little bit. The mistake was believing your other conference commissioners. This is the salvageable thing. You convince Notre Dame to come in and be that third division of football that becomes like an AFC, NFC, and a third. You might not be as powerful, but you will at least have teams that can compete on the national level that keep you floating. Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech, Notre Dame. But I don't see that happening because we don't know what the college football playoffs is going to look like. If it's a at-large thing with a committee where you invite the 8 best teams or the 12 best teams,
that's all it should be,
and you eliminate conference champions, Notre Dame's never joining you. Notre Dame is never joining you in that situation.
But that's what it's going to be. But the
ACC is screwed.
The playoff could simply consist of teams at that level.
Possibly.
Right, which Notre Dame would have to be in a league to be at that level.
Maybe. But Jack Swarbrick's part of the one coming up with the new playoff system, so clearly he has a seat at the table of how they develop this.
That may also change as we go forward. Chip, why do you think the ACC is viable? Because I tend to agree with Joe that the best they can do is essentially convince Notre Dame to be a part of it, maybe add a few other schools, and create a good third option.
Right. Go ahead and create, add Navy, Stanford, do the things that are going to, speak to what Notre Dame's tradition is. And you hope that the addition, not just of the Fighting Irish, but of these other schools, allows you to create a new contract with ESPN that won't have so much of a gap with what the SEC and what the Big Ten is making.
Maybe you can get to $30 million short of where they are.
Will ESPN reward the ACC's loyalty for being one of the first to go all in?
No, they won't.
Well, they sort of did with the Big 12. The Big 12 isn't nearly worth what it was when they had Texas and Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. They did not cut them, but I would argue that not cutting them, keeping the money status quo, is a drop. Right? It's a drop.
Mm-hmm.
So the move that the ACC can do internally to keep other schools from moving when it comes to the finances is going to be merit-based annual payouts. When one of the things that we heard from USC and UCLA was how upset they were that they were getting paid the same as the rest of the Pac-12, believing that even though they were getting these small little checks, they were responsible for a big portion of those small little checks. And it was silly for them to be getting the same cut as some of their other conference members.
That still didn't stop Texas and Oklahoma from leaving.
It did initially. Because that deal, the initial deal, that Texas, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State also got extra money to stay in the Big 12. Now, eventually, that ran out, and then they took off. All right, I've got like 2 minutes left here. So quick answers. I'll start with Chip. When the ACC disintegrates, because they can play
lesser brand football. Like they could be playing, like the ACC could still exist. It just might not have.
It's called the AAC.
Anyway. Which 4 schools leave for the Big Ten? Which 4 schools leave for the SEC? Quick.
4 of the Big Ten is North Carolina, Duke, Virginia, and Georgia Tech. The SEC is Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and TBD.
NC State fans are.
I'm with Chip on the Big Ten in that Duke and Carolina are a package deal. Virginia makes sense, and you can pair them back up with Maryland, and they can be buddies again. And then, Georgia Tech already has that connection with Atlanta because the Big Ten still cares about TV markets.
Sure. Big Ten Network
the
on
SEC,
and basic package.
The SEC, as Chip said, I'm with him too. Clemson, Florida State, Virginia Tech, Miami would make the most amount of sense to me. That leaves NC State as the odd man out. NC State actually has the most to lose in this scenario where they end up playing with the American at some point. And, hey, ECU and NC State can finally be together.
And App.
Yeah.
And Charlotte.
Yeah.
And
meanwhile, Wake Forest goes to the ACC Boutique Bespoke Basketball League. Like the Big East.
I think the ACC can survive. They just need to take Boston College money and send it to Clemson.
Chip, the ACC is surviving like my hairline, dude. It ain't happening.
Wow. Chip Patterson, thank you very much for hanging out.